Previously on your favorite episode.
Yeah, I'm a Virgo. We're perfect for each other, whatever.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Your Favorite Episode. I am Trevor Fraser, here with my producer, Jackie Mick, and today we are going to be talking to a wonderful radio producer in her own right, producer of the Mediocre Time with Tom and Dan podcast. She is also the host of the Semantics podcast, which you can go at semanticspodcast.com. She is a lover of punk and ska and an excellent TV watcher. Her name is Samantha Haar.
TV rots your brains.
That's absurd. TV only softens the brain like a ripe banana.
Television. Much of our future depends on the way we use this medium of communication.
Hey, Samantha, nice to meet you. I don't believe that I've ever actually met you.
I don't think so.
So I think we're probably Facebook friends. It's really cool to meet you. And let's dive into this. This was fun, mostly because I did my first watch through of Seinfeld ever about, I don't know, two or three months ago. So just recently.
The whole series.
Well, I have to confess something, and maybe I feel like I should hear more about what you care about the show first. But I went, yeah, I'm going to watch Seinfeld. I'm going to see what the buzz was all about. I didn't watch it when it was live. I was a Simpsons guy, and somehow they conflicted. I can't remember how, but I just didn't get to see Seinfeld for some reason. Anyway, when I started on season 1, and I went, oh no, well that's a mistake. The first season of any show, that's not right. So I went, okay, I'll jump up. And I jumped up to 3, and I was like, You
don't get it.
I just don't really get what the humor is here, I guess. I don't know. The audience is laughing at things that I don't know why they're laughing at them, and I'm going, okay. But then I jumped to like 6, and right at the end of 6, it started to really click for me. And then I realized that everything I've ever known about Seinfeld were the last 3 seasons. Every one of them happened season 7 through 9.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But am I wrong? Like if you think about it, think about the terms or anything Spongeworthy, which comes up in this one, or
No Soup for You.
Yeah, right. Soup Nazi's the last season. Festivus is the second to last episode almost.
See, that's the thing is when I watched it, it was already. I was really young when I started watching Seinfeld. I was 9 or 10 years old, which is what fucking kid that young is watching Seinfeld. Right. But it was in syndication already, so I was watching the older ones, and they were not in order. So I have a hard time differentiating which season which episode was in. You know what I mean? But I did try and do the chronological watch through a few years ago. And then I got distracted with a bunch of new shows, and then I just never went back to it. But I've seen every episode, just probably not in order. Is
Seinfeld your favorite show, or was just this the first thing that came into your head when we asked?
It's definitely one of my favorite shows.
Okay. Yeah.
I grew up watching it. I watched it for years. I have definitely probably seen every single episode multiple times. Certain, of course, episodes I can quote front to back,
Right.
This particular episode I picked because it wasn't one of the ones that is meme worthy that people bring out lines to. It's one that I remember having a specific memory with, that I was I have to rewatch this again because I remember the first time I watched it and how funny it was. To me, it was a show that I watched with my mom. My mom and I didn't really watch a lot of shows together. So when we sat down and watched Seinfeld together, that was our bonding thing. And watching my mom laugh to that episode was that memory sticks out in my brain,
Was there a detail of it? I mean, it was just you picture her on the couch there.
Well, the specific, I don't know how detailed you want to get into the episode.
I'd like you to get as detailed as humanly possible.
Okay. Well, of course, the funniest scenes of all of it is Kramer in the jeans.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's the funniest part of the whole episode.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of listened to your Kin episode, so I don't know if you want to like talk about like the back history of what Seinfeld is. I think everybody knows, though, right? I mean,
we'll get to no. We are going to do that, but we can get to that. You're on a roll with this, so I'd like you to keep going. Just about the specific what you're saying that you remember from this thing.
I just remember, a lot of the other stuff, which we'll go through the episode, of course. Yeah. But the main thing to me that I remember was the scene where Jerry is trying to pull the jeans off of Kramer and he just falls back onto the couch and he can't get them off.
Right.
And my mom was just like cry laughing, and I don't think I've ever seen my mom laugh that hard in my life. And I was just like, well, this is funny,
There it is. That has defined it for you. Since you got into him so young, did you sort of gravitate toward follow Seinfeld's career?
Interesting. I never, ever saw any of his stand-up until maybe, 2 or 3 years ago when that Netflix special came out?
Oh, yeah.
Never saw his stand-up.
Yeah. And that's by far, like, I hate to editorialize, but that special was by far the worst thing. He'd been on a slide. I'm not saying that he hadn't been, like, going downhill for a while, but I just remember watching that special and being like, oh, he's become Tim Allen. Like, what the hell is it's just this straight, full Tim Allen comedy of, like,
but is that not always what he's done? Because if you watch the intros of all the shows, it's kind of...
But he used to be absurdist with it. And that was the thing, was in the early part of his career, he still has one of my favorite jokes of all time, which is the luge is the only sport which would be the exact same if you used people who didn't want to do it. I just have always loved that idea of the thing. But he used to be really, that was kind of his thing. He would get these weird topics and he would hit something just in like this perfectly phrased way. And I'm not saying, again, I was never like a big Seinfeld guy. It was just, I remember when that special came out and I watched it and I was like, oh man, you used to be.
It's interesting that like
funnier.
I grew up watching the show. Never watched any of his stand-up, but also grew up a very big stand-up person. Like, I love stand-up comedy.
Right.
I go to shows as much as I can. Like, I watch all the specials. I listen to, like, stand-up comedians' podcasts. Like, I love stand-up.
Yeah.
Never watched Seinfeld, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first stand-up that you watched?
Live or on, just like
the first one you remember, the first time you remember watching, like, a stand-up special?
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah, was it Raw?
Yeah.
Was it did your mom showed you Raw or
no? It was my dad. That was the more risque parent.
I was gonna say, if your mom watches Raw, then she's cried, laughed to other things, and so
yeah.
But,
I was way too young to watch that too.
Yeah, sure. yeah. That's a crazy one, young, and particularly because you were when were you born in the 90s?
86.
86. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but you're just slightly older than I am. You were at least in a place where it was already not cool to say half of the shit in that special.
Oh, yeah.
Probably by the time you saw it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I saw it like right on the cusp of like, no, we all still say the same dumb, homophobic bullshit and so on.
I mean, yes and no, because I mean, that shit was still going on. Into like the mid 2000s, you know what I mean? Like people are still using that terminology.
Yeah,
maybe not as aggressive, but
I feel like if we get out of Florida too, we'd find it more frequently.
For sure,
significantly, yeah. So, but yeah, in any case, that's so. I wonder why you never saw his stand-up. But on the other hand, you probably learned his stand-up as all the wrong stuff to do in stand-up. Like, you don't say, what's the deal with airline food anymore?
Yeah, that's
because
the joke.
Of him.
Yeah, that's the hack thing, yeah.
Yeah, even though he never actually said that. I've got to say, for the day, that's not actually his joke. But
I don't know, I guess, I love the show, but I guess I just always thought, like, because I'm really into, like, blue comedy. And so I guess I just thought his would always be too clean.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, even, like, Jim Gaffigan can get away with kind of being clean as far as like the verbiage, but some of the material is pretty raw,
I'm honestly embarrassed to say this, but Jerry Seinfeld is my least favorite part of Seinfeld. Give me every other cast.
Give me
every other cast member before Jerry.
Yeah,
but Jason first.
I think that's the whole like joke of the show is like he is everyone's least favorite character.
He's hands down just the person who understands the camera and what to do the least. There's a scene in this where it's really funny. It's when he's yelling at on the phone to George.
Yes.
And there is just this moment where you're watching him and you're realizing that all he's doing is trying not to break. He's not acting. He can't act. He can't actually even get into the character of himself. No. He's just trying not to break. Happens
so much in that series. So many times he almost breaks, which to me is funny.
And everybody else is an actor around him. Jason's an actor. Elaine's an actor. Like
any scene with Jerry Stiller in it, and he's in it. Like, who wouldn't break, right?
Right. Exactly. And then not to mention, you also have Kramer, who, let's all admit, is significantly better at physical comedy.
Literally wrote that down as one of my notes of like, especially this episode was so good at the physical comedy. Yeah. It's a shame that like what happened with him. You know? We know.
Yeah.
You know there's a punk band called Racist Kramer?
Yeah, I do. That's a really great name. I only know it because it's a great name. I don't know anything they've done, but I came across it.
I don't either. But they're playing like some punk fest this fall or something, and I was like, oh, Racist Kramer. But yeah, nobody really does physical comedy like that anymore, I don't think.
No.
Like that naturally.
Yeah, he was kind of the last. So the first thing I remember Michael Richards from, have you ever seen a movie called Transylvania 65000?
No.
Okay. It's a brilliant movie. I'm going to do a quick little tangent here. It was made by Dow Chemicals. This is true. The movie was produced by Dow Chemicals because they had made a bunch of money in the Czech Republic, but there was a law that said that you could not, if you were an international corporation, take your money out of the country, that you had the money that you had made in the country. And so they needed to get their money out. And so they decided to produce a movie there that they could then sell over here and take the profits from and just call that their movie. Right. And so they did this movie, and it's with Jeff Goldblum and Ed Begley Jr. and Gina Davis. And
I'm in. I don't even know what it's about.
It's the stupidest comedy. Like two reporters for the Weekly World News get sent to like the Czech Republic to go to some basically Dracula village and look up monsters. That might be it's really funny. It's amazing.
Try and find that.
Anyway, Michael Richards is in it as this very odd, like maybe mentally challenged, but you don't really know keeper, like innkeeper,
like a riffraff from Rocky Horror.
Yeah. Where you're just kind of like okay, but he's very happy-go-lucky. He wants to always be doing things, and one of the best gags in the entire world, I'm just going to say this, but I can't describe it properly because it's a physical gag. But Michael Richards at one point just comes up to fucking Jeff Goldblum's character and he's like, oh, hey, watch this. And he drops a banana peel on the ground and then just steps away like 6 feet and then just goes humdy, flip, and like full like back plant, like slip. And you see, he literally walks up and drops it. Like, everything that's going to happen. And it's still the funniest fucking thing in the world when it happens because he fucking nails it. Like, that's the whole premise of the joke is, yes, I'm going to slip. You don't get how well I'm going to slip.
And do it anyway. Yeah.
So that's how I knew him as a physical comedian. And so when I saw him, when I finally was doing the watch through, I was like, I get him as a character now. I get what the point of Kramer was just this full on let him be physical.
And he had the crazy hair in the movie.
Yeah. No, yes. Yeah. He always had the hair. That's iconic. Yeah.
Just FYI, it is currently streaming on Amazon Prime.
So you talk about the jeans being the best part. Let's just jump straight to this. Tell me about him and the jeans. Why does this happen, and what happens?
I watched it was it last night or the night before to refresh my memory, and I took some notes. And like all I remember, and I should have wrote down exactly why Jerry started teasing Kramer that when he met him, he always wore jeans. And now every time you have seen Kramer prior to that, he's wearing like slacks, right? Like slacks and like a bowling shirt or something. And he's like, oh, I can still wear jeans. I can still pull it off. So then he goes and buys, quote, dungarees slim fit.
Slim fits.
To make sure that, he's still got it. And then he comes like walking in all stiff, like literally cannot bend his knees. Which, when you're watching it, and I think that episode was in 97, I think. Yeah. I could be wrong on that. I did not realize that Seinfeld started in 89.
Wait, hold on. Let's not
It's in May 1996.
96.
Oh, 96. Yeah. Okay. So it's like, when you think about like what you saw at the time, you're like, yeah, those are tight jeans. But now we know that like, they're like skinny jeans are like actually painted on, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I've worn skinny jeans. Like those were not that skinny, but they're supposed to be like slim fit. And Jerry even like makes a comment of like, you're walking like Frankenstein, which then comes up later when he's babysitting the little kid. Which is another hilarious scene.
I know. So we got to talk about the use of Mickey in this episode.
Yeah.
And Mickey is a tricky little thing, and I think that I don't mean that. That's not how I meant to say that. No. What I mean is that it is tricky to use Mickey only because they obviously want to go for the joke. Like they obviously want it to be about, Mickey being a short person, and that's what they want it to be about. But they also don't want to just do that. And in fact, I think they do a really good.
It's actually like been in like quite a few episodes.
Yeah, I know. No, he's in a lot of. He's in a lot of.
Yeah, Kramer's like real good friend. Which worked out great for this episode for the scene they were doing for the actor studio.
Right. Yeah. Right. So this is what I'm saying is that they actually do a good job of not
focusing on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Not focusing on it. Not pushing him into that. And I think that that's really cool. Though I do think that part of the comedy that they were going for in that scene is definitely the height disparity between them. Only because that is genuinely very funny.
Eventually he pretends to play a child in a bed asleep.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then they do that bit. But yeah, when they have to go, so again, there's the scene where Kramer in these jeans has to help Mickey audition for Inside the Actor's Studio. And to do it, they have to do a scene where he's doing an interrogation.
Yeah. Where Mickey's like the detective, Kramer is supposed to be the assailant or whatever.
Yeah, right.
He was not supposed to show up in the jeans, but Jerry could not get the jeans off of him. So he ends up having to go to the audition anyway in the jeans. He's late. He's stiff walking in, and Mickey's yelling at him in the scene to tell him, because he's trying to interrogate him, like, sit, take a seat or whatever. It's like this stool.
Like the scene hasn't even started. He's basically just saying, sit down. And that's the most impossible task here.
Yeah, he literally cannot sit down. He's trying his best. He cannot sit down. Mickey doesn't even understand that it's because of the jeans. He thinks that like Kramer's like fucking around. So he's screaming at him. And then he gets legitimately pissed at Kramer and like tackles him.
Yeah.
Which then the irony is that everybody in the audience thinks that that's part of the scene.
It's again, we talk about the physical comedy. It's just such a well-crafted, well-created scene. Like his frustration watching him just get as Kramer cannot find his way to sit.
Yeah, he physically cannot bend his knees.
Physically cannot bend his knees. And just the 6'8", Michael Richards. What is he? How tall is Michael Richards?
He's pretty tall. I want to say like 6'4".
6'3". So yeah. But yeah, he just did anyway. It was a very funny scene.
But let's also talk about like the beginning of the scene or the beginning of the episode, where Jerry and Elaine are sitting in the diner and they see another couple that they both know. This is why this episode is called The Wait Out, right? Right. It's because they both had crushes on each of the other couples. And by the way, anyone that hasn't watched Seinfeld, Jerry and Elaine used to date. They no longer date, but they are friends. And they're both like, oh, it's so-and-so. And like, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about some of the major actors that used to like be on Seinfeld as like guest actors. Like Debra Messing was the female of the couple, and what is his name? Carrie.
Yeah, the
Carrie
Princess
Elwes.
Bride dude.
Elwes
Yeah,
from the
Carrie
Princess Bride.
Elwes.
I never know how to say his last name.
Me either. That's why I was like, I don't know how to say his last name. But he also reminds me of the guy from Mindhunter. They look exactly the same.
Oh, Jonathan
He's also
Groff.
in Hamilton. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Jonathan Groff is he was
exactly
in
the
Hamilton.
same,
He was
right?
I
King
feel
George.
like he's in so much stuff. Jonathan Groff had like his little hands and everything.
Oh, I know. All over the place.
They could be the same person though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm with
They
you.
look exactly the same.
I'm totally with you on that. But
And like people forget like Bryan Cranston was in Seinfeld. You know what I mean? Like there's so many big actors that before they got their, I don't know, big break or whatever, or their own shows, like they were on Seinfeld. I was like, holy shit, I forgot they were in this episode.
Oh yeah.
And so Jerry and Elaine both want to date these other people that are married. They see them like arguing, and then they hear, and then George comes in to the diner, and he makes an offhanded comment, just joking around, like, oh, you could do better than this guy. And then Debra Messing's character like starts thinking about it, and she's like, oh, maybe I can, you know. So he puts a little doubt in it. And then Elaine and Jerry get worried about it. And so then they start working together. Like, how can we break them up so that we can date these separate couples? And I'm like, which is pretty fucking twisted, honestly. Oh, yeah. But makes for a funny episode.
Well, first of all, can we just talk about the how twisted this is? Because, the storyline progresses from there to, we'll get into how George breaks them up. But they break up and immediately... Jerry and Elaine come up with a plan where they're like, we got to call them, but we can't let them know that we're calling them for dates. And they're like, well, then why are we calling? And they're like, why are we calling? Like, where they're like, why could, and then,
we're there for you.
I love that we're there for you. We're there for you. And then eventually we'll get rid of the for you and we'll just be there.
Yep.
And it's so
manipulative.
It's as openly manipulative.
Nobody in this show's a good person, by the way.
Right.
Nobody in this show's a good person.
Well, we talk a lot about the sort of upping of the stakes that happened in It's Always Sunny. To jump to that for a second, but It's Always Sunny is kind of seen as this like raising the stakes show and so on. And I think, why didn't we think that Elaine and Jerry were that level sociopath? Like, why wasn't that shocking?
I did.
Why was that funny? like
it's still funny, but it's absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's like these people are not good people, but that's also what makes it funny. They're flawed as hell. They're manipulative as shit.
But see, here's the thing. I think that the laugh track sort of warms people to them. The laugh track sort of makes you think, no, it's harmless. They're fine. They're harmless. They're just, they're sociopaths. They're harmless. It's okay.
I don't know. Because, I don't know. I've been watching recently. I don't know if you guys watch Righteous Gemstones.
I just watched Vice Principals too.
Literally just finished Vice Principals yesterday.
Yeah, we finished like 2 days ago. Like whenever the day before Mickey left, we finished. And then when he gets home, we're going to watch Eastbound and Down because we've never seen it. So we're doing just like the whole...
I did like the first two seasons of Eastbound and Down, and then we kind of fell off. But I'll have to go back and visit it because it's kind of the same thing where it's like you laugh at it, but these people are the worst people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Vice Principals was like outrageous.
Lee Russell is the worst person.
Like, I had to turn off Vice Principals for a bit and be like, I
need a break.
Okay, hold on. Like,
I loved it all.
Right, let's go back to it.
I loved it, but they're all terrible. You know what I mean?
I love shows about terrible people.
Oh,
yeah.
Shows about terrible people are very funny. And
those are real people, right? Those are real people.
Yeah, exactly.
People are terrible.
I just think that there was less of a conversation at the time of Seinfeld was shocking because of its like sexual mores, the concept of Spongeworthy and so on and so forth. But it didn't really make the headlines for being
edgy or whatever.
Yeah, edgy. Right, exactly. It wasn't that kind of thing. And I think that I think that really there was a difference in the way people were portrayed as sociopaths then versus now? Because, like, again, everyone else around them sort of reacts like it's kind of normal, like that they're just sort of normal people in this world, and you're like, yeah, I mean, they're obviously exaggerations of people in the world. People often get weirded out by Jerry and his, obsessions and that sort of thing, but it's sort of normal.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe not like society or media or anything, but like within the show, characters would call each other out of like how terrible they were.
No, of course they would. No. But again, it was like jokingly terrible. It was like, right. Oh yeah, you're terrible. It wasn't like you're a fucking criminal. Like it was never. It was never to the level that we have people react to things like they do, for example, on It's Always Sunny, where it's like, oh my God, what have you done? This is the worst thing of all time. Everybody's like, wow, you're really bad in Seinfeld. But it's also, I really think that the use of the laugh track humanizes things. The audience is like, no, it's okay. Everybody's just laughing. It's a good time.
I believe, I could be completely wrong, but I think that there was both a live audience and a laugh track. This is the first episode we ever saw Elaine with straight hair.
Okay, I wanted to bring
this up. They also made a quasi big deal about. Also, the first time we ever saw her drive, which they made a big deal about.
I bet she was all over all of the magazines when she had straight hair. I can only imagine.
Right?
The celebrity machine was turning so big back then.
Look how hot she is with straight hair.
The first line of the episode was about it.
Yep.
And it was like, what's up with your hair?
Yeah. It was just a weird thing that they threw in there, I thought.
Wet or something. It was like they were, I couldn't remember. It was like they were saying it was bad hair.
I just got that it was different and they wanted to make a point that it was different.
Why? What was...
I don't know. I have no idea why that was even
it might have been, to be fair, this was up against Friends. And
and here I was going to talk about this.
It was not up against Friends. Friends was at 8:00. This was at 9:00.
No. Yes. I mean, it was up against Friends in as much as Friends and it were on at the same time. They were on around at the same time. I'm saying that it was happening at the same time.
Well, they were on the same network. They weren't really competing, though.
No, they were not competing. No, they weren't competing. I'm just saying that it was on at the same time that Friends was on.
When I watched it, when I was watching like the already syndicated ones, so Friends came on at 7 on like whatever it was back then, WB18 or whatever it was. In Orlando, and then Seinfeld came on after. So sometimes I would just sit through Friends to wait for Seinfeld, and I was just like, this is such a. I also used to watch Living Single, which was the better version of Friends, the black version of Friends, which was actually way funnier and came like a year or two before Friends.
It was way funnier.
And they knocked it off. Like they literally ripped it. Like there's actual evidence that they literally like lifted that whole idea and then made it white people in New York. And it was like not as funny to me personally. I've seen a lot of Friends episodes, but like not really by choice because I was just waiting for Seinfeld to come on. Friends was so like empty and vapid to me. And there wasn't like, almost everybody was the same. And where like Seinfeld, like everybody was quirky and weird and had like, and they were fucked up. You know what I mean?
They felt like real people.
Yeah. And Friends just seems like Rachel's not going to be a fucking, she's not working at a coffee shop. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was all just weird to me. Lisa Kudrow was the best part of that show.
Yes, 100%.
Oh,
100%. Yeah. And her best work ever is On the Comeback, and I Will Die on That Hill.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen The Comeback
I love that show.
I need to.
I don't know. Have you seen Feel Good?
I don't even know what that is.
No, I haven't seen that either. That was a very interesting project.
Netflix.
Okay, because I'm looking for a thing to watch.
I think it's about a stand-up comedian named May. I forgot her last name. She's great.
Okay, well, I'm watching that immediately.
Yeah, and she's like the mom. It's awesome.
We're talking about ripping off things, and one of the thoughts that I had when I was rewatching this afternoon is, who did the pants thing first? Was it Friends with Ross's stupid fucking leather pants? Or these pants?
I forgot about that.
Oh,
like who ripped off who? And I meant to look it up and I forgot to look it up, so I do not know, but maybe I'll write a blog about it.
You got it?
I have the date this episode aired. This
Which is
episode, May 9th, 1996.
Oh yeah, no. The leather pants are January 7th, 1999. It's 3 years
Shit,
later.
okay, Ross fucking
Straight up
stole it. I'm blaming Ross because Ross is the worst.
Did Friends not steal everything?
Yeah, Friends are stealing everything.
That could be a whole podcast on itself.
It'd be a whole podcast. Oh my god, there should be a whole podcast of like things Friends stole from other episodes, from other shows.
Oh my god,
right?
that would be so amazing.
That'd be good.
That sounds like a Patreon thing, honestly.
But I also don't want to like piss off the Friends fans because they are pretty rabid. They get real offended if you like shit talk Friends.
If you go too hard on Friends. So, yeah. But Friends had haircuts. Was known for its haircuts. In particular,
the Rachel,
had become quite famous for her haircuts. So I wonder if Elaine, if that was like something from the network, like, hey, have a haircut, like change your haircut,
or just straighten your hair. Yeah,
becomes an Elaine thing, and that's the Elaine.
I don't know.
I wonder if it was. I wonder if there was a brief period after that episode aired that there was the Elaine, and that people got it, but then nobody ever called it that, and it just sort of disappeared.
I gotta say, and I didn't like continue to watch after that episode last night, but I think that she kept that hairstyle for at least a few episodes, and then went right back to the curly. And I don't know why that was. I don't know if they were like testing it out, like you said, like maybe they were trying to do like a Rachel thing of like, hey, let's make this popular, which is also fucked if that is the case, because it's like women with curly hair. Oh, to be pretty, you have to fucking straighten your hair. That's dumb.
Right.
I don't know. They didn't really ever explain it.
No.
And it kind of came and went,
Right. And again, it almost would have made more sense if they hadn't even like attempted to explain it. If they just hadn't mentioned it, if she had just been around and that was her hair for a while, and you'd be like, "Yep, that's her hair."
Well, you'd have to, right? Because at that point, it was years of her with curly hair, so you'd have to mention like, "Hey, you got straight hair. Your hair is different." You'd have to mention it. That'd be fucking weird to not mention it.
Well, either way, it lands her Carrie Elwes. And real quick, let's do some of the stuff that we should have done earlier, but I don't care when we do things, of course.
You're the host, buddy.
Let's do just a quick summary. So first of all, give me a summary of the show. And so give me basically what the show is about, what you can tell me about the show, and then like the characters, the main characters, sort of walk through those.
So Seinfeld is about Jerry Seinfeld, who is a stand-up comedian from New York. And so like every opening you see a bit of his set or whatever. Then you have basically Elaine, who is a former girlfriend, who is now one of his best friends. You also have George, who is another main character that is also one of his best friends that he actually went to high school with. And then you have Kramer, who is one of his friends, but kind of only by proxy because he's a neighbor. I don't really know that they'd be friends otherwise. If you watch some of the earlier seasons, you can tell he's like quite annoyed with him. I think he's annoyed with him pretty much the entire series, but there's love there. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're friends. But I don't think outside if they were neighbors, I don't know that they would be friends. And then, you have all the families, right? So you have like Jerry's mom and dad, which Jerry's dad changes after season 1. And then you have George's mom and dad, which are admittedly some of the best characters of the entire series. R.I.P. Estelle.
R.I.P. Estelle,
a couple days ago. And then, so it's just, and again, it's like notoriously called like the show about nothing, right? Which is like the tagline or whatever, but it's really a show about everything.
Right.
It's like it's a show about like the mundane shit that happens or the absurd shit that happens in everyday life to everybody. And so that's why it's funny, because you can imagine like being at a restaurant and you're standing there and they're like, oh yeah, it's 10 minute wait, and then they're calling all these other people that aren't there. Like there's so many weird situations in this show where it's like this shit happens all the time to people, and it's so absurd that it's funny. You have to laugh at the absurdity of it or you just get fucking mad.
Right. Yeah.
And it's weird that I think, like I was saying, like I started watching Seinfeld as a kid, like a 9 or 10-year-old, and I didn't know anybody else my age that was watching that show, by the way. Like, I'm watching it with my mom, who was probably like in her mid 30s at that point or whatever. But I always like liked shit like that and like listened to like talk radio, which I do now basically. And and even like stand-up specials and stuff that like I think people will call you an old soul, which is like a nice way to say like you went through trauma and you had to grow up real quick. But I don't know. I watched a lot and listened to a lot of stuff that like nobody my age watched. And that now that I'm older and people are like getting into it and people are like finding it now, especially in the world of like Netflix and stuff where like people are going back and watching old shit. It's like, oh yeah, like I watched that shit fucking 20 years ago. Like what?
Right. Oh yeah. No, I know. That is actually really neat seeing people to like just discover like King of the Hill or something. Like just be like, oh man, you know, like I just learned about this and it's amazing. It's like, oh wow, you got a thing to go. I can't wait.
And even you said that you didn't really watch Seinfeld until like 2 or 3 months ago, right?
No. Yeah, no, I didn't watch Seinfeld. I remember when Seinfeld was happening. You know,
watch it though.
Yeah, it just wasn't. I can't remember why. There was, first of all, it wasn't syndicated on the channels that I watched.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
42. 41.
Oh, so you're older than me.
42 and yeah.
I did
years.
watch it live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
from
like,
the beginning?
Yeah, from the beginning. I was like totally
89?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I was total like I was a big TV person even back then, and like I was bought in to the whole NBC Thursday night thing like really hard. Except for normally
that. What was it on Thursdays? They called it something.
Oh, must see.
Must see TV.
Yeah,
I fucking loved Caroline in the City. Like that was the crown jewel of my night was Caroline in the City.
Oh, I don't know that. I mean, I know the name, but I never watched it.
Caroline in the City is one that I didn't discover until it was in syndication, and it actually really was very, very funny.
Yes, Leah Thompson and Malcolm Getz. Malcolm Getz was a fucking prince in that show. It's so good.
I don't mean to say actually. I remember that I had gotten some sort of bad impression of it from like critics or something. I can't remember.
It was a girl show.
I guess,
critics
I guess
did not like girl shows
and
back
it was,
then.
You know, so I didn't watch it when it was happening, but I caught like episodes of it in syndication. Was like, Jesus Christ, that's a funny fucking show.
I still feel very embarrassed admitting how much I liked it because of all of the backlash girl shows got back then. Like, it was not a good time to be a girl growing up, for sure.
No,
it's true. Now, right? We're finally getting a little bit of fucking.
True. A lot of there's been a lot of. I'm really happy with the number of like really interesting female lead shows now. Like I'm like, oh good, other stories, yay. But it's not like again, the other options were always like male written feminine dramas, like you know. Your David E. Kelly shows and so on, and I'm like, I'm not really into it, but like,
I mean, I damn near picked a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode, which I know exactly which episode I would do, and maybe if you guys have me on again, I'll do that one.
You probably would have awakened a whole thing because I have never watched an episode.
See, and look, I wore my magician's shirt today. Just for Jackie, because I'm trying to get her to watch it.
I know, it's on my list.
You'll love it. I'm telling you. You'll love it.
You will, Jackie, you will love it.
I also know... You watched it?
I have seen... So, I liked... I'm a weird guy on this. I really liked the first season when it happened.
See, that was my husband. He liked the first season, and then he fell off. And I was like, oh, you gotta keep on. You gotta keep on.
No, so when I came back to it, because I didn't, like, follow it consistently... So when I came back, they were caught up really heavily into like the Spike story and the
Buffy.
Yeah, like shit was happening, like Angel and Buffy, and I was like, oh, I don't know what any of this is, and we're not doing like funny, stupid teacher as a mantis thing anymore, and I just like I really liked the funny, stupid version, but I have really come to like I watched like later seasons. At a certain point, and I was like, okay, this is really good. There was a really good story that was happening here, and they were doing like really cool kind of sci-fi fantasy telling that they didn't, that hadn't been done really on screen or on TV at least this way. And I thought that was really neat. And so But I don't know the whole like series. So I would, if you had picked an episode, it probably would have been.
Oh,
new
I got
to me.
one in the chamber, buddy.
What would yours? What would it be? I'm just curious.
I'd have to look up the actual episode name and number. But it is the musical episode of Buffy.
Okay, yeah. I have seen that, but only to watch the musical episode of Buffy.
So good. I have the vinyl. I have the vinyl for that episode.
Oh.
That's how much I love that episode.
It's a good episode. It really is. Well, and so what we will do then, because you have told us this, let us save that for Sam in case anyone else tries to pick it, because I know that's going to be a popular
better not come from an episode.
But yeah, we need to go. No, sorry, that's a reserved episode. We have somebody else for that. So
I feel like we already have like 2 guests that we're going to have back at 3. For all the guests we're going to have back at least once a quarter. I already feel like it's.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah. No. I would hope so. But I would also like to get back to the episode, and I want to get just a quick summary of all the storylines. If we haven't any of the storylines that we haven't yet talked about, we talked about Kramer and the jeans. We talked about Jerry and Elaine.
I mean, I wrote it down in chronological order. So
okay.
Jerry and Elaine at the diner. They see the couple, Debra Messing and Carrie
Elwes.
They're sitting there.
Or Elwes. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it right.
Wanted to date these couples, blah, blah, blah. We're waiting because they're like, we've heard they're on the rocks. So that's why it's called the wait out. George comes in. He makes just a snarky comment. What didn't mean anything by it. Was just like, oh, you could do better than this guy. Which that guy's a very handsome man, by the way. Now, he might have been an asshole in the marriage. I don't know. Then you have Mickey, who is Kramer's friend, that is trying to get into the actor's studio, who has asked Kramer to help him in his scene. Then Kramer buys these goddamn jeans. Cannot get out of them. Again, first time we've seen Elaine with straight hair, and the first time we've seen her drive, which they made a big point about too. And they had Jerry ride with her a couple different times. I think the first time, and it was just like a jerk type situation where, because she doesn't drive normally. New York, a lot of people don't drive. Right, and
she was saying that she missed driving, and and she's just driving insanely. And I love the way they do the green screen there, and just have let her just go nuts with the wheel.
Yeah. Then Jerry and Elaine tell George at Jerry's apartment, like, hey, George. They're like, George comes up and they're like, hey, dancing, like, Georgie. And he's like, what's up? What's going on? And like, we love you, bro. You made that comment in the diner to that couple, and now they're separating, which then turns George's anxiety upside down, and he freaks out like, oh my god, I'm responsible for breaking up this couple. So he wants to try and get them back together, even though his 2 best friends are fucking pissed because they want to date these people. And so then George tries to go over to, I can't remember the character's name, and I apologize. I think I'm popping my peas. I'm sorry. George goes over to Debra Messing's apartment and tries to fix what he did. But then Jerry knows he went over there, so then he calls Debra Messing's house and is like, hey, George is there, let me talk to him. And then George is playing along. I mean, even that scene is fucking hilarious to me, where he's like, George is pretending like he's having a whole different conversation. He's like, yeah, no, I already ate, but thank you. You know what I'm saying? Just to hang up on him because he doesn't want to fuck around, and he's trying to do right the wrong that he thinks he did.
And he writes what he thinks is a Jerry joke. He did about the mint ice cream, where he's chocolate chip. What is it about chocolate chips and mint that go so well together?
He did.
Yes, you can use it.
I don't like chocolate and mint together.
I thought that was just it was just yeah, you can use it. It was just
he's like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
But but just anyway, that was fun. It was lovely.
And then it, kind of jumps to Mickey's audition, where Kramer shows up, can't sit down, but still, even though it didn't go the way Mickey wanted, in the fact that Kramer could not sit down, it actually worked in his benefit because it looked like he was just attacking, the assailant that wasn't following directions or whatever. So we actually did get into the actor's studio. Mm-hmm. So then later, Kramer ends up at Jerry's apartment, which, by the way, I never saw this lady. I don't remember ever seeing this lady in any other episode, but she knocks on the door and then asks Kramer to watch her child.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen this lady, never seen this child. This is fucking weird to me. And she's like, hey, can you watch little Johnny or whatever the hell his name is?
Yeah. And the storyline doesn't come up until like 3 minutes before the end of the show. It's just like, by the way, here,
it's literally only for that one scene. It's literally only for that one scene where like the kid wakes up in the middle of the night and he sees Kramer coming down the hallway, but all he sees is the shadow, which looks like Frankenstein because he can't bend his knees, so he's walking side to side with the crazy hair. So the kid freaks out. He runs out of the apartment, and Kramer starts running after him. And again, it's just a bunch of different like alleyway scenes of like the shadow of Kramer looking like fucking Frankenstein.
And he calls Mickey.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has to. He's like, hey, can you cover for me? Come lay in this bed and pretend to be this kid until I can find this kid because the mom might come home. So then he's got Mickey. He's like, no, I'm not doing that, blah, blah. And I think a part of that was a little bit of like, no, just because I'm a little person, I'm not going to
play a kid.
Child. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, hey, man, I got you in the actor studio. You owe me one. So Mickey does it. Gets up under the blankets, whatever. The mom does come home. Spoiler alert, we're telling the whole fucking episode. Mom does come home, and she's like, good night, honey. And then you hear Mickey go, good night. Which is like, it's so stupid, but it's funny, Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it works. I'll tell you, you can always tell the point. So I feel like when we say that Jerry's the least favorite part of this, I feel like I can tell.
He was a nothing in this episode.
I feel like I can tell where Larry David is in charge of something happening, and it's very funny. And when Jerry gets involved and it stops being funny. And that is a perfect moment of that where we have him say goodnight, and we could have literally ended on that, but we cut to Jerry and George sitting on the couch in Jerry's apartment, and we hear her scream. Now, we could have ended on that, but we don't. We have to get in Jerry turning and going, I bet it has something to do with Kramer. And I'm like, what a dumb fucking line. Why is that line there?
Yeah. Yes, that's not exactly how we end, because then we do go back to the diner.
No, that's not how we end the episode, but that's how we end that joke.
Right.
I just thought, I'm like, that didn't add anything to the humor of this for him to say, I bet it.
But it does if you, like, watch the entire series, because it's always, like, if something fucking crazy is going on in the apartment, you're like, well, Kramer has to have something to do with it. It's like like the go-to joke.
But
is that what you mean? You mean the easy joke. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they could have just looked at each other or anything, but it's just this one extra overt, and it felt like, who wrote that one line? But they're just moments that I have like that with the show where I'm like, I feel like this is Jerry overrunning.
Yeah, but it's also the early 90s. Yeah, that's what you did.
That's fair. No, and that's fair. That is totally fair. But anyway, I don't mean to harp on it. But
So then you jump back to the diner with George and Susan. Which, by the way, fucking weirdo, random turn of events. I just got off of a punk rock cruise, and I don't know if you guys know who Me First and the Gimmees are.
Oh yeah,
so
yes.
So like a punk super group. They kind of change members or whoever's available to play like cover songs, right? But they're all punk covers. So like punk covers of like top 40 pop hits, whatever. They were making a joke, and I don't even remember how it started. They made a joke about licking envelopes and how it killed George's wife.
Right.
And I was drunk at this point, and I'm just like, R.I.P. Susan. And I was like, what are the odds? Because I knew when I got back I was going to do this episode, and I was like, what are the odds that like they made like a Seinfeld joke on this cruise?
Well, and the next episode in the series is that episode.
Is that episode? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is the last episode before Susan dies.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you want to tell the Susan storyline?
Well, I just want to finish what they were talking about in the diner. Right. So then Elaine and Carrie.
Oh, Carrie Eloise.
That guy walk into the diner together because they're still trying to like make it. There's Elaine and Jerry are still trying to like date these people regardless, even though George is trying to get them back together. So you see Elaine and him come in, and he says to Susan the same thing that George said to Debra Messing's character, which is like, you could do a lot better than him, just to kind of like give back at him. And then you see Susan kind of like think about it. And I think at the beginning of that scene, they were like talking about shoestrings, right? Where he's like, oh, the shoestring, like just mundane shit. Like they hate each other. Like they fucking hate each other. George and Susan, like they should have never got together. They fucking hate each other. And so she starts to think about it, and like you see George kind of his wheels turning, and then he goes back to Jerry's apartment, and he's like, I'm out, because he's been trying to get out of this fucking engagement the whole fucking time. Right. You know what I mean? Which is interesting. I didn't realize the next episode is the one where she's licking the envelopes, but at the end of the episode, she's like, I've come to a decision, and George, like, again, the physical comedy, right? He didn't say anything. He just put his hand on her shoulder.
Performance.
He just put his hand on her shoulder, like put his head down, like, I know, it's okay. Like thinking she's going to break off the engagement. And she's like, I've decided with the chicken. Like just so stupid.
He is the best part of the show, and he's the only one of the main four that didn't win an Emmy for his performance. And it makes me so sad. Because he's my favorite part. Yeah.
That is
that's bullshit. Yeah. Like if I could go give him an old one for that, or even like when he was in Bye Bye Birdie on TV, I'll give him for that too.
I'd give it to him I would give it to him for Duckman. I've been going back and watching Duckman.
I don't know what that is.
You don't remember Duckman?
Here's an easy way to encapsulate Duckman. The reason Jason Alexander said he did Duckman is because it was the complete opposite of George Costanza.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. Duckman is this like unconscionable. It was an animated show in the mid '90s, mid to late '90s. It was on USA, and he voiced this private detective Duck, who was like not just like vulgar and like he was like vulgar and stupid and just amoral, and like everything about him was terrible. And he had it's weird. It was all like it was very social commentary and very obvious sort of social commentary for the time. Very sort of like in your face. But
it was all animated.
It was animated, but at the same time, and this is the thing, because I've been going back and rewatching it, and my God, it's not that the commentary is so on, but the actual writing in that show gets incredible. Like just they take some Duckman. I'm telling you, it's all on YouTube. It is very weird, and it's very off-putting for like a few episodes, kind of no matter where they are. It just is. It takes you a second to really, fall into it. But when you do, I'll tell you, it's great for being stoned. It's marvelous. For
can do.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, but I love I've developed a whole renewed appreciation, not new because I always liked him, but renewed appreciation for Jason Alexander there.
Oh, he's so good.
Oh, he's so good. And he's great as George. And George was literally every other like quote unquote main character that you see throughout the series, not just like the one-offs, like the Debra Messings or whatever, mm-hmm.
The one like Jerry Stiller, Estelle, like all these people that you see, Newman,
mm-hmm.
Those characters are what make the show. It's not fucking Jerry, even though it's called Seinfeld. Like
Seinfeld. Oh yeah,
it was never really about him. It's about everyone in his life,
Yeah, every other person is the funnier person. And in fact, the only way to me that they ever really made Jerry funny on the show was when they started to recognize, like in the first season, when Jerry would have like a hang up about some girl or something, it was always kind of presented like the audience would get it too and would also be hung up on that, or would also, and so on. And by the end seasons, by the later seasons, there's this full recognition that Jerry is like incapable of recognizing another person as like a good
he's a narcissist.
just like so violently a narcissist in his own brain. And and so to me, that's when it got funnier with him, was just when all of a sudden he would have to like throw out things that had touched other people's hands and so, like just be like, nope, well, that's got to go, and all that, and that sort of like, that he'd do that. But it was always,
I think that part of him is true. Like there are parts of that whole show that are like, some of it are parts of him and some of it are Larry David and whatever. Like I think that shit. And I think it was Mickey that like posted like the cereal thing, and I'm like, that was his whole obsession was like Superman cereal.
Superman and cereal.
That's and Jerry. Like that's all he cares about. Himself, cereal, Superman. That's it. He doesn't really care about anything else.
I can believe that he's a germaphobe. I imagine that's how he and Larry David first bonded. I don't know that that's
like what's his face from Little Monsters?
Howie Mandel.
Yes. I wasn't going to name that other show that he's on now recently, because who gives a fuck about that show? They're about to remake Little Monsters or do a sequel. No, sequel. They're going to do a sequel
to Little Monsters.
No one needs that.
Are they going to use Fred Savage?
I think they're doing Fred Savage and Howie Mandel. I don't know if Ben Savage is going to come back, but
it would be sweet if Fred Savage directed it, since he's mostly a director now.
Okay, so Fred Savage is still alive, right?
Yeah, he directs Sunny a lot.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that is right. Okay, good. That makes me happy.
He was also in a Seinfeld episode when Kramer went to LA in the later seasons.
Also, speaking of people in Seinfeld episodes, the writer of this episode, Peter Melman, was in this episode.
Who was he?
Who was he?
He played Man at Rehearsal.
So he was one of the people at the actor's studio.
Cool. Okay. We also didn't talk about the way that comes full circle. Because after Kramer gets arrested chasing a boy like Frankenstein down the street, that over the credits,
legitimately arrested by a detective, and they think he's trying to actually kidnap this kid who he's supposed to be babysitting, but this kid is like, I don't know, this freaky man that's chasing me or whatever. So he gets arrested. They start questioning him about it. They tell him again, just like in the actor's studio thing, like, take a seat. And he literally cannot. And he just starts leaning on the chair with his elbow.
I love that at no point does he attempt to explain the situation.
He never does.
To the officer.
Which is funnier.
Right. You know? Oh, no, genuinely. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to ruin comedy for people.
Yeah.
Like, it's funnier when you see it and I'm not there telling you why it's funnier. But, but it's just a great moment that the cop is like, sit down. And he's like, okay.
He never says like I can't. Nothing. He tries, and then he just starts. He literally just, and again, what is he, 6'3", right? And he just leans his whole 6'3" body down on his elbow onto a chair.
Onto the chair.
No,
and that the cop at no point notices the difficulty that he is having, and is like, "Can you not sit down? Is there a problem with sitting down?"
I almost picked the other episode, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys remember this one where there's the was it his lawyer or his tax guy, Jerry's tax guy with the sweater, and Kramer thinks that he's on drugs because he keeps sniffing, and then he goes and then he goes into the bathroom with him, and then he does he's drinking a beer, chugging a beer, and then he flips a cigarette and then puts the lip part in his mouth. That was also another favorite of mine, which it's not very quotable, but it's really fucking funny, again because of the physical comedy.
Oh yeah,
just like this.
The sniffing accountant.
Sniffing accountant. Yeah.
So good.
We have touched on everything. Is there something we didn't touch on? That we really should?
I think we really broke down that whole 22-minute episode.
All right. Well, I'm going to take off. But most love, everybody, and thank you guys for doing this.
Bye, y'all. I'm going to go watch something we talked about.
Bye.
Bye.